All right, so this is action today in real estate, and I got Dave Antonell,
How's it
and
going?
doing good. He is a rock star realtor down in Hingham with some city roots, and that's what we're going to dive into today. So, you just made the move, right? When did you guys
Yep.
move from? Was it Somerville or Cambridge? You guys were in?
I was right on the like Dorchester Quincy line. Most of
Oh,
my
nice.
business is in Somerville and Cambridge, but
Got it.
yeah, and I moved down here 4 years ago and
Nice.
did that little move. Yeah, and it's we see a lot of it. A lot of people. I feel like especially people who live a little more south of the city, kind of moving to the South Shore,
Mhm.
and yeah, once COVID hit, I think we see a lot of people kind of looking for that extra office, more
Mhm.
space, wanting some a little bit bigger backyard and just a little more value with having flexibility in their commutes.
Yeah. What What do you think you'd give for like the number one tip? Because I think the hardest part, forget about money, forget about prices for real estate, selling, buying at the same time, going from renter, all the other stuff, the lifestyle change. Because I think that's probably the biggest change of living in the city, convenience of everything there. I know me and my wife, every time we go in the city, because I've never lived in the city, she has. Every time we go
Yeah.
in there, every time it's a conversation of like, we could do this. I'd love living here,
Yeah.
being able to walk to a restaurant at night and then walk
Yeah.
home or whatever. What did you do to get ready for not having that like at your fingertips convenience of living in the suburbs?
Um, one thing is really figuring out what the value instead of the restaurants or the this and that. And Hingham actually, does have like a center of town with like 4 or 5 great restaurants. Like
Mm,
you can live in Hingham and be able to walk to great bars,
yep.
restaurants. It's kind of unique in that nature. But I think the first thing in that sense is like, okay, was gonna have a little less walkability and be able to
Mm,
drive easily to places, drive into the city as easily. So I was like, okay, I want more of a yard, right? So like
mm,
values changed a little bit. And I still love those things, but the values just shifted. And I think that one of the most important things to start off is one, figure out that value. Like, okay, I want to move to a suburb. Maybe you want more space, bigger house. That would be way more expensive in the city. And the other thing is that I just came to head when my head when you asked that question is just becoming hyper familiar with every town. And
mm,
you might have a town in mind that you like, oh, I like this town, right? But every town is hyper local, right? You have the
yep.
center of town, you have this area, you have the trick-or-treating neighborhood, you have, all
Mm,
these little neighborhoods. So one thing I did, and I would recommend to anyone, my wife and I had, we had our first child and a second one on the way,
mm,
and we would go for walks a lot, like after work or just on the weekends in the summer. So I do, what's just said again, we were like Dorchester, Quincy area. We had thought like we want to move to like Hingham or Situate or
mm,
Cohasset, somewhere on the coast. And I said every weekend that we're free, let's go for a walk in the morning and let's just drive down,
yep.
like 15, 20 minutes and let's park somewhere near one of those towns. It could even be a neighborhood. Like sometimes we did it on the
Yep.
water. Sometimes we're like, let's just Google a neighborhood. Let's just go park in that neighborhood and just walk around. And
Mm,
it actually really helped get us familiar, like super familiar, just like what it was like, what the scene was like. Are there other young couples and kids walking out of these
I like
neighborhoods
that.
like us? Or, what are they like? So I think that all of a sudden shifted. And I was just went from, I want to buy in this town to like, I want to buy in three like, sure, for the
Yep.
right house, I might end up anywhere in this town, but there are three neighborhoods that if a house opens up in one of those three neighborhoods, that's the house I'll go all in for and I'll pay a little
Yep.
extra for. And so I think that knowing value and figuring out, real estate super hyper local, like what you
Mm,
like and figuring out the ins and outs of the town.
I
And
love that.
and lastly, obviously, like talking to a lender, um I like reminding people like
Mm.
get pre-approved, figure out your financial part as early as possible. People are like scared of it for no reason. They're like, doesn't it affect my credit or this,
With
that,
the boogeyman. Yep.
it's so tiny. It's so and like the best thing you can do to buy is figure out. And
Mm,
I, in the last like 1 to 2 years, I've had multiple clients who've ran into things that surprised them. I even had one last year. We had a closing for a condo. A couple who was upsizing. Well, they were
mm,
like downsizing, but actually they were getting a bigger house to retire in. And
nice.
they were like, "Hey." they were at a retirement stage of life, so they were like, well, our income might come down. We have some cash here or there, a lot of different placements, some investments. Are like, we're going to sell our condo. We'd love to buy our final resting place. And they're like, this is what we think. The husband was like, I ran some calculations. We still don't mind having a small mortgage. This is what I
Mm.
think we'd be pre-approved for. And it was like, 900,000 or whatever it was, 950. And the bank pointed out like a really good point. They're like, hey, at
Mm.
first he was like, I want to have like no mortgage. And then they're like, hey, if you want to have a mortgage of like 200 grand or something, you can
Yeah.
use this money you have over here. You can blah, 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 blah. And they said your payment would be like $1,200 a month. And if you do that, you can buy a place for 1.3 million. And he was
Yeah.
like, oh, interesting,
Yeah.
and like
Got to have the strategy behind it.
he ended up being super happy, bought like
Mm.
his dream home bigger than anything he'd ever thought. And he's like, I don't mind paying 1,200 bucks a month. He's like, I'm still getting like some residual income
Yeah.
from work. I have a rental property, but he just in his head wanted to be like, no mortgage. I get it. Like he's
Mm.
65. So just seeing last year, like someone go from like, I'm going to buy in the 900s, I'm going to buy, and then all of a sudden change to 1.3 and is as happy as ever. And vice versa can happen, right? Like you can have someone who,
Yeah.
thinks they're pre-qualified. You go spend a lot of nights looking at three properties here, four properties here,
Oh,
and then um, you find out that like, oh, they're not pre-qualified, and
yeah.
or for a lot less, and even if it's a little bit less, which isn't like that big of a deal, you just they just went and saw 15 properties with you at 750, and then they found out they're pre-qualified for 650. So it's like
Yeah.
you just wasted your time. So I think, I always preface it to people. What's good is like you can find yourself wasting a lot of time as a real estate agent.
Mm.
And in the early on in my career, I was like afraid to tell people like do this, do that. So I just was like, okay, we'll go along and I'll slightly nudge them and
Yeah.
get pre-approval. But now I always tell them I forget. I'm like, this is their time that's wasted too.
Yeah.
Like I would be bummed if I found that
Like
out in the middle of my
you
search.
never want the carpet pulled out from underneath. That's what I
Yeah,
always explain to buyers when I'm like, hey, what's the benefit of getting the answers early
yeah,
and often is you don't want to be walking in one direction to realize you spent all this time walking around one direction and it's the wrong direction, right? Like,
yeah,
because you can't get those footsteps back. Like you've
yeah,
already spent that time. Like it is what
yeah,
it is. You've got to change your direction, but you
yeah,
can't go backwards, right? You can't get back 30 days on the market on strategically looking at the right houses. Those
yeah,
houses that you could have been looking at are probably gone. So like
yeah.
it's very important to have the right steps there. You mentioned something that I want to chat about, which is the centers of towns. Because
Sure.
I've always noticed that I love when a suburb town has a city center, right?
It's
I
really cool.
hate when I love my town of Marshfield. We have a horrible center. That's something
Ah,
I've griped about my entire life. I don't
ah,
know why. But like when I go to like I don't even know if I'd count the Plymouth waterfront as Plymouth center, but
sure.
to me, the center of a town is like where is the commerce and where are people
Yeah,
congregating the
yeah,
most? So Plymouth waterfront to me is their center, and it's amazing, right?
yeah,
Hingham Center, it's
yeah,
amazing. You
yeah,
you get the suburb life a mile away with the white picket fence and a house and a
yeah,
yard. And then, like you said, if you're bold, you could probably walk out of most of Hingham, a lot of
sure,
Hingham, and walk to a pretty cool area still and
sure.
kind of almost really get like the best of both worlds. Was that a decision making, part of your process when you guys were looking? Because you could go into like deep Plymouth and not have that at all, right?
Yeah, that was definitely part of mine. Like I liked being 5 minutes from Derby Street shops and 10 minutes
Mm.
from the center of town. One of the three areas I looked at was Liberty Pole, the neighborhood I'm in now, which is like the
Yeah,
Halloween capital, like the like
nice.
young
Love
neighborhood.
it.
The other place was the center of town because when I
Mm.
first got here, I got connected with someone who lives in the center of town,
Mm.
and he's a 3 minute walk just up a hill from all the
Yep.
restaurants, as if it was Plymouth Center. He's like, you walk up that hill, 3 minutes. He's like,
Mm.
and then the house with the big yard and the little yellow house on the left. He's like,
Yep.
that's mine. And I'm like, you can just walk down here to these restaurants. He's like, yeah, we do it all the time. And
Yep.
there's a little marina there with like docks
Mm.
and stuff. And she's like, oh yeah, all summer she's like, we have a boat at the dock right there. All summer he
Yep.
goes on his laptop and he just goes sits out there on the boat and works from his laptop. And I'm like,
Perfect.
that's incredible. So I said to my wife too, I'm like, one day the center town in Hingham would be my favorite spot.
Mm.
This is my favorite for families. So like this works for me
Yep.
now. There's a ton of families. It's like I said,
It's not on a
Halloween.
main road. This, I think, the
Oh,
downfall of like the really city centers. It is main roads. You lose the neighborhood vibe because it is.
yeah.
We go to the Hingham. Fourth of July
Yeah.
parade every year
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
my wife's aunt is from Hingham, so we go there and we probably go right on that road that you're talking about that goes
Yeah.
right into the center of town.
Yeah.
It's great because everything we park far away and walk, and the walkability
Yeah.
of a suburb is a very, I don't know if it's very under talked about, but like that's a big factor, I think, right? Like I
Super. You
think
can
that
have
that
suburb
really
and have,
drives
yeah.
people to want to. When I chat with people about Plymouth,
Yeah.
because that's a new, like that's they've refreshed it so much. If you
Yeah.
live in that area now, like it, everything's right there. You have it all
Yeah,
right
it
there.
is. It is. It's all right there. And that to me is like the best of both worlds. I think this fits me now, but I said to my wife, I'm
Mm,
like, when I'm like 65 one day, if I'm like still in this area and still living in Hingham, I'm like, what I would love to do is sell our house and buy
mm,
something sweet in the center of town. And I was joking with her. I'm
yeah,
like, that's what I need to get my steps in more when I'm older. So
yeah.
like then you should just like you
If
walk
forget when
around to
older,
all
that's
this.
happening now.
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
like it's like and some we see that sometimes with I've had a handful of clients
Mm,
that have gone out to the suburbs in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and then it's been like this new common trend that we've seen
mm,
where like people in their like at like 68, 70, like creeping up touching 70 have been
mm,
like we're gonna just like cash out and buy like a sick condo in an area that has tons of walkability in the city
yeah.
because they're like we want to be more actively walking, and when we sit
Mm,
out in Sudbury in the middle of the woods like we're just
yeah.
sitting home on our iPads all day. So
Mm.
we've seen some people do that, which is
Where it
kind of fun.
flips back,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
like you go do like your, maybe you do your 20s into your 30s in the city, and then you like your 30s to your 60s in the suburbs, do that
yeah,
whole like family if that's your like if that's what you're doing, and then everyone's out of the house, and it's like, let's not go to Florida, let's just go back to Boston. Let's
yeah.
go
And
buy
it's like,
something in Seaport
yeah,
and live that life again.
you're the same thing as you were before.
Mm,
You're like a kidless couple now,
yeah.
so and I think that's kind of fun for some people, adds a little
Mm,
liveliness to it. So I think we're seeing more of that. But I think what's big right now about when we talk about city to the suburbs move,
mm,
a lot, I think there's going to be a lot going on in this next year too, because I think a lot of companies are
yeah.
also figuring out what they're going to do when it comes to work from home. Because there were a
Mm,
lot that said like in 2022, like when COVID really hit,
yeah.
like that January, or sorry, it was COVID-19. It was January 20, COVID
Yeah.
hit, and it was like a year to almost two of lockdowns. And then
Mm,
companies being like, hey, we can still do this. We can do, it's like
yeah.
21, 22. Probably in 2022 when people are like, okay, we can do this. We can work remotely, or we can work 3 days a
Yeah.
week remote, or whatever. And then some companies are like,
Come
hey,
on
actually,
back.
yeah, yeah, come on back. This isn't like this.
Yeah.
The numbers aren't working.
We
This
can
is
tell you're just moving the notes around in your
yeah.
pocket. Like,
So
you
some
gotta
com
come on back.
so some companies are like, come on back. So I think that we're having people figure out like, oh
Yeah.
shoot, I was being hopeful. I was like, let's move to the
Mm,
suburb. I don't mind commuting 3 days a week. I'll drive an extra 30 minutes. I don't mind an
yeah.
hour commute. But now they're like, I might have to go back, or I might have to,
Yeah.
do something like
I've
that.
noticed that with traffic. Boston
Yeah.
traffic now, like during COVID, it was almost like a cheat code. If you were going to do
Oh,
anything
it was
anywhere, it was like, there's no
fantastic.
one on the road. This is
Yeah.
quick. I went to the opening game back for the Bruins
Yeah.
when the first game, it was May 29th, 2021, when they
Yeah.
first, maybe it was 2022, I think it was 2021, when they first allowed people back into the game at full
Yeah.
capacity.
Yeah.
It was bedlam. But I remember going into the city with my buddy that night thinking, this is the easiest Bruins game commute because usually there's a little bit of Red Sox game, Celtics game. I've always lived in
Yeah.
South Shore. So anytime I'm going in for a game,
Yeah.
there's
There's
usually a little
something.
bit of like game commute. And I end up going to a lot of like Friday night games. So there's already the
Yeah.
Friday night commute and then the game commute. You get a little bit of that late night northern traffic coming from the
Yeah.
south into the city, which
Yeah.
is counterintuitive because it's usually, the peak hours of going into the city for work and leaving the city for
Sure.
work. So you get
Sure.
a little bit of a different. There was no one. There was no one on the road at all. Like, you just breezed right in like 25 minutes. I'm like, this is spectacular. But now if I go to Boston,
Yeah.
there's like no window that there's
Y-
not traffic. It feels like
Yeah.
everyone's coming and going 24/7 in that
Yeah.
city.
And it's not as like slammed at times. Like what's funny is I actually feel like, and maybe I'm off here, but I do feel like they're like Fridays sometimes can actually be better because some people are
Yep.
work 1 day a week from home. Where
Yep.
before Friday used to be like
Friday was the
people
worst.
from noon on, it's just like
Yep.
jammed up. Now I feel like when someone asks me to go to a showing on a Friday in the middle of the day, I'm like that I'm probably gonna zip in and zip out, like
Yep.
most likely compared to other days. And Wednesday, those are like the tougher days. But I think that a lot of um a lot of a lot of what we're seeing are like some changes now with companies just being like, okay, you
Mm.
have to come back or not. And companies are trying to draw a line in the sand to compete with
Mm.
other companies, which is interesting. And
Yeah.
I have some family members and some friends that work at some big companies in Boston, and some of them
Mm.
are like I know HubSpot, which is a really big company in Boston. Like they said, hey, we're gonna let you work remotely,
Yep.
semi-remotely, which is like you come in a certain amount of days or this or that, and we're gonna have three options, and you have
Mm.
to let us know at the beginning of every year. And
And then
these three,
that's your schedule.
and they said, in these three options, I was surprised they said this. They said these three options are going to be permanent, like for at least like the next like 15 years, which is impressive that they did that because
Yep.
they basically said we want to add values when like developers,
Mm.
programmers, they hire a lot of programmers and stuff. And a lot of
Yeah.
they're trying to say to people like, hey, if you want to buy a house on the South Shore, like wherever, like
Mm.
you can do it and we'll guarantee you for 15, 20 year, whatever it is that you'll be able. They even said that
Yep.
you'll be able to work part-time, like 3 days in, 2 days out. That will be
Mm.
permanent forever, they said, for the lifetime of the company. So if someone's like, okay, I don't mind now living in
Yeah.
Situate,
Especially for that type of work, because that's like they could probably easily, like if you're a software developer
yeah,
or a fixer in IT or something, that like we can see that you moved something, you did
yeah,
something today, right? Like it. And those people, I think they really loved the work from home. I
and
joke in the industry of mortgages that the best thing that happened to underwriters was the remote work, because
yeah,
now they don't have loan officers like breathing down their neck about like, hey,
yeah,
what's going on with the Jones file? Is that thing clear to
yeah,
close yet? Like what's
yeah,
happening here? They just
yeah,
get to sit in their room and underwrite loans and be left
yeah,
alone by all the salespeople.
yeah,
Whereas all the salespeople got sent home and was like, who do I talk to now? Like
yeah,
what what do I do? I want to be in the office. I want to
yeah,
be, around people and some liveliness. And,
yeah,
I think IT, like those people that like really just want to be left the hell alone, like
yeah,
because now underwriters are super nice. I call and talk
yeah,
to an underwriter about a file. They're all like, hey, Mike, how you doing? Whereas it used to be
yeah.
like,
That's
really? Leave me alone. I'm trying to underwrite
yeah,
loans over here.
yeah. But yeah, I think we'll still see some fallout and some changes in the market from that because I think that there's,
Mm.
or at least what I've noticed, some companies doubling down on it, saying like, yeah, this is permanent because I
Yeah.
think they're trying to win over developers or certain type of people. And they're not just making these rules for developers because then it would probably be
Mm.
seen as like unfair in the company. So they're
Yeah.
making them company wide. And these are companies with 4,000 employees. So
Yeah.
I think we're going to see companies, and then you might have they compete with Google. They take developers from Google, from Facebook. So now we'll
Mm.
see a lot of these, and it's different when a company's saying like, "Hey, here's a job here, and you can work part-time remote." You might not go
Yeah.
buy a house in another area, but when they're starting to now come out of the woodwork and say, "Hey, by the way, this is a permanent thing because we want people to be able to plan their life
You
around
can
this."
make your decision a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really so I'm starting to talk to clients now that are like that
Mm.
are asking that question to their companies, and
Yeah.
companies are now it's in like 2024 and 2025
Mm.
starting to design like permanent policies
Yeah.
around the work from home
Which
now
is
that
huge you're bringing that up, because that's
yeah,
also something we bring up
mm,
as a lender. So we're
okay,
asking, like, if you're moving really far away from your workplace,
yeah,
that's a question that gets brought up is like, are you commuting? Like it,
sure,
because I've had a lot of people that do hey, we're not even buying, and forget about moving out of Boston into the
yeah,
suburbs of Massachusetts. We're moving out of Boston to Nashua, New Hampshire, right? Because
yeah,
we can get a house for 400 grand there.
yeah,
That's 650 here. And we only have to go into the city once a week. It's a 2 hour drive, not that big of a deal once a week. So, okay, well, now we just need, like, if your headquarters is Boston, we're going
yeah,
to need your employer to tell us that you're cool. I
yeah,
had one client that was like, oh, actually, they don't know I'm moving to New Hampshire. I'm like, well, you probably should bring that up. You
yeah,
should probably confirm, because it was temporary. And they were
yeah,
actually nervous. They were like, I don't know what this is going to do for my, work situation. I was like,
Yeah.
You probably have these conversations. It's probably a good
Yeah.
strategy to kind of
Yeah.
hash it out. So you don't want to buy a house and then realize you have to move again in 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
God. What about narrowing down a search? What are some like tips and tricks as you start narrowing down? Particularly, I think there's a lot of people that are in Boston that aren't from Massachusetts, right? So they might not
Yeah.
know all the towns. I love the idea of how you were going around and taking walks and doing that. Me and my wife did something similar when we were going and looking at houses in other towns that we didn't know. We would
Yeah.
try to find a restaurant that we had never been to that we
Mm,
could go to after a showing or an open house.
that's a
So
great
like
idea.
we try to make it almost like a date trip to
Yeah.
go look at a house.
Yeah, I would also say, I mean, this is where like ChatGPT and AI can come in helpful, but like
Mm,
I noticed I made a video on Hingham and the best some of the best neighborhoods to live, right? Like
yeah.
just about this topic. And I was I was like, huh, I should ask this about I was going to look at a property with a client, investment property. And it was a town I was like familiar with, but not as much as Hingham, where I like know every tiny pocket, like what are the best three neighborhoods. And when I asked ChatGPT, it did like exactly what you'd expect. It was like, well, I can't tell you what the best is because
Yeah.
best is depends on what you
Subjective.
like, but I can tell you what some of the things people like about each area. Saying like in
Yeah.
Hingham, for instance, we just brought up like some people like that downtown you can walk to restaurants. Some people like that
Mm,
over here you're by the water. Over here, people like that you're near Derby Street and have family friendly neighborhoods. So it just said like I'm gonna give you 10 areas
mm,
and tell you what people like about them. So I would reverse engineer that and say,
yeah.
hey, I really want like,
Mm,
boom, this type of neighborhood, like a family friendly neighborhood, but I really want a place where I can commute into Boston
yeah.
75% of the time within 45 minutes. I love the ocean. I'd love to be a 10-minute drive from the ocean.
Mm,
And I do like restaurants. I want to be able to drive less than 20 minutes, 15 is okay for less than 20 minutes and have at least six different options of restaurants.
yeah.
And ChatGPT will probably like give you a map, be like, these are the
Oh yeah.
right, like these
Spit
are
it
the
out.
coordinates you need to live in, and like maybe you want good schools too or something else.
Yeah.
Then that's gonna narrow it down for you. And that used to take a lot of time and energy, but now you could like pump that into ChatGPT. It'll probably give you some good options, and then I'd start to look in those areas and check them out. But
Yeah.
that's what I would do. I would reverse engineer, write down everything you want, and then put it through and see what
Mm,
that kicks out. And then maybe you need to live near a commuter rail or something,
yeah.
and that just helps
The
you narrow it down.
power of a legal pad, right?
Uh,
The power of a legal pad, I
yeah,
think is like
yeah,
just sit down with whoever you're making the decision with, like husband,
yeah,
wife, partner, whoever's in the game with you. I know me and my wife did that where we sat down when we were like, all right, which towns, house, budget. I was like,
yeah,
this is old school. Just put it on a yellow sheet and we just
yeah,
start writing everything down and then we graded everything. We did like
yeah,
a 1 to 10 scale and we gave everything like, okay, if it's not in the town we want, what's that grade, right?
yeah,
And we just hashed out. And when new things popped up, we would just add them to the list to be like, okay, now we have a list of mostly what we're looking for.
sure.
And then that almost makes it easier. The moment you
Yeah,
like kind of take things out of your head, sit down, hash out. Like when I get a new client that hasn't done their budget yet, like that's
yeah,
before I even pre-approve you, go do your budget, right?
yeah,
Go sit
yeah,
down. What are you spending your money on? Where is it going? How much extra do you have? What can you really afford? Because I'm not one to tell you what you can afford. I can tell you
yeah,
what you qualify for, but I'm
yeah.
not one to tell you what you're actually going to make your payments to.
Exactly,
So you
exactly.
just go hash it out, and you can get super fancy or you can keep it super simple, right? Like
Yeah,
I think I love that you take the almost the legal pad, write down everything, and then pump it into Chat GPT.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
I know you don't have to go do that research. You still have to
Yeah.
do the conversation of like,
And
what do
you
you
might have a
want?
you might have a sense like you might be like, well, my wife and I wrote things down and I kind of know it's Plymouth, Situate, Marshfield, I kind of,
Yeah,
but one might surprise you. There might be a
yeah,
town that you're like, I never thought about it. If I lived in that area of this town, I'm still within all those things. And you go
yeah,
visit that town. I mean, that's happened to me before where I go to an area and I'm like blown away. I'm caught
yeah,
off guard. I'm shocked by it. So it just kind of exhausts all resources, I think.
yeah. And it just do the homework, right?
Yeah.
If I was to say from what I'm gathering from what you're saying, anyone that's thinking about, all right, in the city, we want to move, we're either selling our current place in the city and moving, or we're going from a rental to a purchase, whatever it is, just do all the homework. right? Like
Yeah.
that's the best. If you don't know anything about the suburbs of Boston,
Yeah.
just start diving in, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that's the easiest thing to do is not overthink it, but
Yeah.
just start something. Start
Yeah.
just go visit a town, right? Like
Yeah.
go check out a new town that you've never been to and do something completely different. That happened to
Yeah.
us with we had never done anything in Concord. I've
Mm.
always known obviously Concord is a very
Yeah.
nice town in
Yeah.
Massachusetts. We had never done anything there. We went to a show that an old coworker was at for the theater there.
Mm.
My wife looked at me and she was like, I want to live here. I'm like, it's too far from the ocean. Because I thought back to we wanted proximity to the ocean was like one of
Yeah.
our top things. I'm like, I can't.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
know it's beautiful here and it's amazing, and I want
Yeah.
the land and the beautiful estate and the
Yeah.
history of Concord, beautiful center of town. It has all those
Yeah.
things. There's no ocean, so like it's a
Yeah.
no go for me. She's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of miss the ocean too. So
Yeah.
like we kind of
That's
almost
good.
would go back every time we punt around moving. It's almost like we're referencing back our
Sure.
legal pad that led to us buying in Marshfield anyway.
That is interesting. Yeah. No, it's definitely, it'll be interesting to see what 2026 brings. I think that we saw like a big jump to the suburbs, then everything kind of like slowed down for a little bit,
Mm,
but now we're seeing like rates getting really aggressive again, like rates
yep.
going down to good numbers, good solid long-term numbers, and buyers having more a little more leverage, which I think is a
Mm,
great thing, and sellers that are pretty motivated. The ones that are
yep.
have been sitting on the market, they're like, all right, let's get something done here. And there's going
Mm,
to be new sellers jumping in. So I think we're in for like a good balance in the spring where there's great opportunity for buyers for stuff that does sit more. But I
yep.
also think there's going to be buyers out there who are more buyers than maybe last year or the year before that are
Mm,
like, okay, rates are where we want them to be. We've been waiting for this moment, and boom,
mm,
this is our moment. But
mm,
yeah, we'll see how it goes. And I think like moving to anytime you're looking to move to a brand new area, it's really the key is like looking at what you value or what you're going to value in that new place. And yeah, get them into Chat GBT or Google if you want to do the old school way
yep.
and just figure out what try to narrow it down that way. Use
Mm,
information to just boom, narrow down what you're looking for.
yep. I love the boots on the ground. Go
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
walk, go to
you
a
have to.
restaurant.
You have
Yep.
to. And it's almost like an open house, so quickly. Like
Yep.
we walk through neighborhoods, some we're like, this isn't, what I thought. This is for me.
Go with your feelings a lot. If it's a
Yeah,
house
and
you're living in, it's
yeah,
mostly feelings, right?
yeah,
Obviously, you got to buy a house you can afford. You don't want to
yeah,
overspend. You don't want to put your
yeah,
belt up. So as long as you're within your criteria of your affordability for your
yeah,
life and your economy, everything else in real estate's the feels. Like I always
yeah,
joke with clients about that. That the most illogical real estate purchase out there is a waterfront house, but it's the
sure.
most expensive. It
Yeah,
has no pragmatic benefit at all, other
yeah,
than it looks really cool to look out of your window while you're drinking your coffee in the morning
sure.
at the nice, beautiful sunrise over the
Yeah,
East Coast Ocean, right? So,
yeah,
like, otherwise, it's you're spending money on a new car more frequently because your car gets ruined, your paint gets ruined in your house, it's more
yeah,
expensive, the insurance is more money. You might actually lose it to the ocean, right? Like there's not a lot of actual upside other than
yeah,
the emotional benefit of
yeah,
there's the ocean, right?
yeah,
So it's like just, and you can't get the emotions until you take action, right? Like
yeah,
you've got to go do the check online, do all, but I love like that you guys did that, that it was like, hey,
yeah,
we're going to go because we did something similar. And I think that's a huge part of it, especially if you're
yeah,
looking in towns you've never lived in and neighborhoods you've never lived in or been to. Forget about the searching on this. Just go to
yeah.
the town. Go, even if there's nothing for sale in that neighborhood. Like you
Just
said, like
learn.
go check out any neighborhood
Yeah.
because
Half the neighborhood.
eventually one will pop up.
Yeah, half the neighborhoods we would take walks and there wouldn't necessarily be a house
Yeah,
for sale or one that we were even interested or in our price point. We would just walk them to get more familiar. So that's the key, getting familiar as possible, I think.
love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, this is awesome, Dave. We'll have to do it again.
Awesome.
Perfect. All right,
Thanks,
brother. I'm
Mike.
gonna let you go.
We'll chat soon.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Later.